Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Pauline Verzosa.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories, a curious discovery of the waters of Masbate. It's an underwater drone that bears Chinese marks that turns out to be a navigation and communication system.
And at least one person is dead and over 500 are wounded due to firecrackers set off during the New Year revelry. Later, we'll get more assessment from the DOH through spokesperson Albert Domingo.
And after a steady upward trend, home prices in the Philippines slide for the first time in 3 years. What could this mean to prospective homeowners, plus the banking and real estate sectors?
What is a foreign underwater drone doing in Philippine waters? That's what the Armed Forces wants to know after an unmanned submersible was discovered in Masbate 3 days ago.
Now, the device was supposedly deactivated remotely when discovered by fishermen who later turned it over to authorities. The drone had Chinese markings.
An investigation is now underway. But this early in the probe, military officials have a sneaking suspicion that the drone did not turn up in our seas by accident. Brian Castillo has tonight's big story.
At first glance, it looked like a rocket. Fishermen discovered the yellow object floating near the coast of Iniwaran in San Pascual, Masbate on December 30. The device, which was handed over to barangay officials and the municipal police until it made its way to the Philippine Navy's custody, turned out to be an underwater drone. It's a 6-foot device labeled HY119 and made of metal and PVC. It also bore Chinese markings. The remotely operated submersible was reportedly deactivated when discovered. But what is an apparently foreign drone doing in the waters of the Philippines? That's what the AFP wants to find out as its Navy arm conducts further inspection. The military is questioning where the underwater drone came from and what it is for. And of course, there are other questions. How long has it been in the waters of Masbate until discovery? And is the drone's presence a breach of maritime sovereignty?
According to the information, underwater communication and navigation system po ito, and believed to be enable water vessels or devices to communicate with surface unit or satellite by transmitting data.
The drone also has frequency hopping capability, which means that it cannot be easily detected once deployed. Recall that the Philippine Navy admitted to only having, quote, modest to minimal capabilities to monitor and spot underwater threats in our waters. And this is where the Armed Forces is banking on civilians and other stakeholders to pitch in to guard Philippine territory. It called for vigilance, encouraging immediate reporting and cooperation in the event of suspicious activities. The AFP also reiterated its commitment to ensuring the safety and security of the country's maritime domain, with all available resources mobilized to ward off intruders. While the military is still investigating the origin and purpose of the underwater drone, some maritime experts already suspect seabed mapping operations, which might be a prelude to the deployment of submarines in Philippine waters. In recent years, several nations, like the United States and China, have beefed up capabilities for unmanned underwater vehicles, for surveillance, exploration, and maritime research. For News 5, Brian Castillo. We are One News.
In other news, the Department of Migrant Workers confirms that the overseas Pinay worker in Kuwait who went missing 2 months ago is dead. Daphne Nakalaban, who has been in Kuwait for 5 years, was reportedly found in a decomposed state inside the house of a Kuwaiti citizen on New Year's Eve. According to the Department of Migrant Workers, her employer told authorities that Nakalaban left them in October, which was also the last time her family was able to contact her. Authorities were only able to find Nakalaban's body after the alleged suspect was turned over by a family member. A thorough investigation is now underway. The DMW also said that they are ready to provide assistance to Daphne Nakalaban's family.
Well, the year has barely begun, but Vice President Sara Duterte might already have a fourth impeachment complaint on her horizon. House Secretary General Reginald Velasco revealed this Thursday that the complaint may be filed as early as Monday next week. Velasco refused to name the endorsers. He, however, disclosed that no less than 10 House members are eager to push this forward.
It was given to me in confidence, so I cannot reveal their names until they actually file the fourth complaint. There are just a few of them, maybe around 10, 12. You know, if they file it on Monday, I will have to make a decision whether I will then refer it to the speaker or delay it further, because again, I'll refer this to the legal department for study if there will be a fourth complaint.
Last December, the second impeachment complaint against the Vice President was endorsed by Makabayan Bloc Congressman. House Deputy Minority Leader and ACT Teachers Party List Representative Franz Castro intends to call a meeting with the other impeachment complainants and endorsers. Her hope to unify efforts to get the impeachment to move forward.
Para mag-usap-usap ano ba yung mga pwedeng gawin para ma-push na natin itong impeachment complaint. No, tatlo na 'yan, no? So ang hirap na patagalin pa 'yan, na nakita naman na natin yung ginawa talaga, no, ni Sara Duterte doon sa mga mamamayang Pilipino, no? Sa pondo, tapos hindi rin naman talaga siya fit doon sa kanyang katungkulan. At naghahanda rin kami, no, ng malaking mobilization, no, this month para para i-push, no, kulang na lang sabihin ko i-pressure ang Marcos administration para bago yung kanyang posisyon for dun sa impeachment.
Now, as of yesterday, the executive order issued by President Marcos on the total ban of POGOs has officially taken effect. The Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission, or PAOC, has heightened their efforts to dismantle small-scale POGO operations once and for all. Following the President's directive, the PAOC is working closely with LGUs to root out and identify these illegal operations. Owners and managers of resorts, subdivisions, and condominiums should be on high alert of any POGO operations hiding in their properties because they will not be exempt from charges if caught.
Meron po tayo sa area po ng Calabarzon at Mimaropa, no? Including po yung Visayas. Sila nga po ay nagkukubli ngayon. Kundi sa mga hotels po, sa mga resort na doon po sa mga area. At pati nga ho yung mga gated subdivisions.
Number one is for allowing them to operate an illegal activity in their area, specifically doon sa property nila. Number two, kung kung may makuha kaming mga foreign nationals, parang then matutuklasan namin yung mga foreign nationals na yun are wanted. Pwede po natin silang kasuhan.
To ramp up the campaign to enforce the total POGO ban, the Office of the Solicitor General is pushing for the cancellation of doctored birth certificates of foreign nationals. They're also seizing illegally acquired items from POGO operations. But the OSG admits it's not an easy feat.
Imagine kung libo-libong tao ang kakanselahin natin ang fraudulent birth certificates. Each one of them will have to go through a court process.
Well, up next, firecracker-related injuries breached the 500 mark 2 days after the country welcomed 2025. We'll talk about this with Department of Health Assistant Secretary Albert Domingo right after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. The Department of Health has confirmed one death due to fireworks. The victim is a senior citizen from Nueva Ecija, and the culprit, another prohibited firecracker, Judas's belt. DOH also said it is confirming 3 other reported dead due to fireworks. Firecracker-related injuries now total 534, and from that number, 28 resulted in the amputation of injured limbs. Now, this year's tally is still lower than the 592 cases recorded during the same time last year. Let's discuss the numbers further with Assistant Secretary Albert Domingo, spokesperson of the Department of Health, who joins us now on the big story. Welcome back. Asik Domingo.
Yes, hi, Gretchen, Shawn, and Pauline. Nice to be here again, and Happy New Year.
Okay, we are now totaling more than 500 cases. Is there an update to this number? And also, the DOH is expecting this number to increase in the coming days. Why is this so? What is your process for tallying, and what are we expecting in the coming days?
Yes, Gretchen, the priority of a doctor in the emergency room is the patient and not the report, which is why you have late reports. There will always be a delay of a few days, particularly when it gets really busy, as with New Year's Eve. So today, the report is 534 as of 6 a.m. of January 2. We do not expect a much larger number compared to this already. Maybe there will be a few reports, but it's not going to be like a massive spike in the next few days.
But there are some patients who are not able to detect their or report their injuries even days after January 1, right?
Yes, this is actually one of the things we're trying to amplify now, Gretchen. All firecracker injuries, no matter how small, must be consulted at the hospital because we don't want to get tetanus. Tetanus happens because your fireworks uses manure. Animal manure is actually part of the mixture, and there could be Clostridium tetani, the bacteria responsible for tetanus. And we don't want people to suddenly have lockjaw and other body stiffening and other complications. So we would advise that anyone who has had a firecracker injury, no matter how small, to please consult with your doctor.
Okay. Actually, Dr. Domingo, I wanted to ask you about the fireworks ban and if the DOH is still continuing to lobby for this. This has been going on for a while, and for a time, at least it would seem anecdotally that mas centralized yung mga paputok per city. But this year, it would seem parang mas widespread siya inside houses, inside gardens. What do you guys have in terms of background info on that?
The numbers actually tell us na hindi siya ganun ka-widespread. It's still 9.8%, 10% lower than, even with the updates, kasi when the numbers came out yesterday, although I was announcing it's a 64% lower, we were very cautious because as we anticipated, magkakaroon nga ng late reports. But even with the late reports, the numbers from last New Year's Eve are still lower by 10%. Having said that, you are right, Shawn, na it's been quite a while, no? Parang sabi nga namin na paulit-ulit na to eh. Ako nga alam ko na yung script. This is the second time that I'm reporting this, and I know that on this day, the warning will be like this. Something is new now na napansin natin this year lang, yung proliferation of online suppliers and online sales, and also how-to videos. That's something that must be considered. And whenever we are asked, like you're asking now, so what do we do with the ban? We have always been pushing for a total ban. We are very cognizant of the fact that there will be those who will oppose, mostly from the firecracker industry. So in our attempt to try to balance things, we have been saying, then why not just have community fireworks? You have beautiful displays organized by local governments, by major media companies and networks. And this would actually be safer because you will have licensed pyrotechnic engineers, as they call themselves in other countries, who know how to light fireworks safely and to avoid explosions. Yun yung mas gusto natin.
So where is the biggest pushback coming from, Dr. Domingo, in terms of, yung kasi parang is it really coming from the industry, as you can see, just from where you stand?
From Bukawi. I mean, di ba? Ganun akong style ko sa spokesperson and just like the secretary from Bukawi. I mean, it's not that we are against them or fighting them, but I'm just saying it matter-of-factly. They are also very transparent when they told us na parang paano naman ang kabuhayan. Kaya nga ang sagot namin sa kanila, mas maganda kung yung fireworks na gagawin natin ay mas high quality, mas professional. Yung talagang pangmalakasan, sabi nga nila na ginagamit sa mga major pyrotechnic displays. Kasi if the issue here is retail versus wholesale, 'di ba? Small small price tag mga labintador, fountain, etc. versus yung mga malalaki na the ones you only see during the firecracker contests. I'm not an economist, but I would anticipate na yung pricing nun mas mahal yun. Saka kung mag-organize nationwide na mga, how many LGs do we have? I think there are 2,000 municipalities. So dun lang tayo sa provinces, 81 or 83 provinces. So if all the provinces would have their own large-scale community fireworks, there would still be an industry to speak of.
Well, actually, ASEC, a lot of the victims are young adults, 19 years old and below. I believe there's even one who is as young as 3 years old. What does this say about the accessibility and just the awareness surrounding firecrackers, and what can be done so that we can bring the statistics down, especially looking ahead already for 2026?
Yeah, Pauline, no? Sabi nga nila, we're already in generation beta, di ba? Tapos na yung generation alpha. Why am I mentioning the generations? The age band is from, you're right, there's actually a 3-year-old, but the majority would be from 5 to 19. These are very young Gen Alpha, no? Kasi yung Gen Beta kakapanganak pa lang. So these are very young Gen Alpha, but they're very digital. They get things online. And that's why I mentioned earlier, yung isang pinakamalaking problema, yung online access. Now, having said that, bakit ang majority male, I think 83% rather, 83% male, and a lot are youngsters, no? So essentially, batang lalaki, sabi nga namin, ano to, is this like a rite of passage thing going on? Or is this still the cultural, a lot of reporters, when they would ask yung mga bumibili sa Bukawi, ang laging sagot, di ko nga alam kung parang standard answer, ito na yung kinagisnan namin ito na yung kinalakihan, this is what we grew up with, so it's tradition. So we need to change that. We need to change that parang cultural perspective that you need fireworks to actually bring in the new year.
Well, dun sa sinabi ni Polino, naisip ko tuloy, kasi kung may content na nagtuturo ng how to, baka dapat may content din na nagsasabi, anong pwedeng mangyari?
How not to.
Paputok ka, di ba? Parang sa paninigarilyo lang, di ba? May mga litrato ng mga, yung nasusunog na baga. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, actually, Gretchen, this is the tricky balance, no? Sabi nga namin, parang kung titignan natin yung cultural or yung para bang analysis na it might be a rite of passage thing, baka mamaya, the more that yours truly will speak na nananakot. Kasi you notice my mode for the past few days, bordering nananakot pero hindi ako naglalabas ng bonesaw, hindi ako naglalabas ng mga gunting, the way that they would do at the ER. It's because when we do that, it might actually feed into this para bang cycle na young boys, di ba, pag sinabi mong bawal yan, wag mong gawin yan, mas lalong ginagawa Mas lalong nagiging thrilling na, oh, there's this DOH authority saying this is wrong, maybe we should try it out.
Okay.
So there's a balancing act when we do risk communication.
I was
tempting yung bawal.
wondering about the number of dead. It's kind of surprising. What happened to them exactly? Do you have an exact number, and what happened?
The number of deaths we have, or a death that we have, is just one for now, the validated one. You did report about it at the start, the 78-year-old grandfather na nagsindi ng Judas belt. This afternoon during the press con, Secretary Orbosa mentioned there are 3 deaths being verified. We are aware that there are reports, may footage pa ng parang, I think there's this content creator na naglagay ba naman ng plapla sa loob ng boga. So imagine the boga, which is the number 1 cause, hinaluan pa ng plapla na illegal rin. So meron ka ng denatured alcohol, lagyan mo pa ng lots of gunpowder at talagang explosive talaga. And that's me not being a comedic. That's me saying na it really was a very unfortunate incident. But when we say in epidemiology we have to verify, we get the details. So we'll see tomorrow if the numbers change. But as of 6 a.m. this morning, the official number is just 1.
Dr. Domingo, speaking of nananakot, no, naglabas kayo ng advisory before all the festivities saying, tumataas yung incidences ng coronary disease, yung mga, in plain speak, heart attack, mga stroke, ganyan, during this season. And that's like concerning, I guess, especially with the older population because sometimes you do hear that it happens to a friend's relative, yung mga ganyan, no, over the... What exactly happens? Is it all the lechon, the drinking, the late nights, everything combined?
Medyo mananakot ako ng konti. It's not as old as we think it is. Marami yung mga age band natin. Natin. I'm in my 40s or probably in your 30s. I'm sure you've heard of a few friends na nagkakaroon na rin ng heart attack, and that's actually alarming to DOH. Kasi, and to your question na ano ba nangyayari, bakit nagkakaroon ng stroke, ng heart attack, and also bronchial asthma? Those are the 3 diseases na binabantayan natin. It's for the first 2, the strokes and the heart attacks, it's because of the binge eating and the binge drinking. Yung binge eating kasi when when you eat a lot of what we locally refer to as the ma foods, maalat, matamis, mataba, you induce spikes in your blood sodium, in your serum sodium, which could actually affect your hemodynamics. And that's a technical way of saying yung dugo pwedeng tumaas yung pressure, at pag tumaas yung pressure, pwedeng magka-problema ka, mapuputokan ka. Or kung matagal ka ng merong sitwasyon na may cholesterol plaques ka, no, may mga kumbaga litid-litid na nakadikit dyan sa paligid ng mga ugat mo, tapos tumaas yung pressure, pwedeng maggalaw yon, tapos pupunta yun sa dulo ng mga ugat ng utak or ng puso at aatakihin ka. Yun yung sa attacks. Yung sa hika naman, in particular, we were concerned, no, buti nilang hindi tumaas na dun sa pagdating ng 31 sa mismo New Year's Eve, kasi syempre ang daming usok, ang daming alikabok, yung mga hikain, ayan na, atakihin. So mukhang a lot of our fellow Filipinos na may hika, they took heed and they got ready with their inhalers. Kaya kahit papano, the numbers did not jump. Pero yung strokes and heart attacks, kailangan bantayan yan all throughout.
Well, I guess for people looking to make lifestyle changes, now is the perfect time sa mga naghahanap ng New Year's resolution. So, Asik, what are some reminders or advice we can give individuals, myself included? I really want to make some lifestyle changes, diba, with what we eat. Hindi lang exercise kasi, diba, Doc?
Yeah, I'll give you the formal or the standard na sinasabi namin, and then I'll give you an anecdote. So what we say in the DOH, we follow the acronym TED, which is the nickname of our secretary. TED, tamang pagkain, ehersisyo, disiplina sa katawan. Tamang pagkain, bawas-bawasan na yung mga maalat, matamis at mataba. Sundan natin yung pinggang Pinoy. 1/2 of the plate should be fruits and vegetables. Just 1/4 for your carbohydrates, rice and noodles. And then the remaining 1/4 for your meats and fats and other tasty stuff. And then for the letter E in the TED, ehersisyo. Yan, mamaya puntahan natin na mabilis yan. Exercise. When you say exercise, 30 minutes of a moderate activity, that means nakakasalita ka pa rin pero medyo pinapawisan ka na. Yun yung standard, no? 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week, okay yan. And then letter D in the TED would be disiplina sa katawan. Please stop smoking, please stop vaping or don't start. Please make sure that you don't drink, especially if you're going to drive, and please take your rest. The anecdote I was saying, Pauline, I just came from the gym this afternoon. Wow, from having no one inside the gym last December, punong-puno, and that's good kasi people are making an effort. Pero ang ating reminder is, let's bring it beyond January. Let's bring it beyond the summer season kasi sabi nga nila, a lot of people are preparing for Boracay now, for Palawan, for all the beaches, magka-abs. No, that's not the point. We should actually be preparing to avoid heart attacks and strokes. Secondary nilang yung aesthetics.
Paano sa mga workaholic na walang panahon na lumabas para
Tulad natin.
mag-exercise?
Counted na ba, Doc? Yung parang kunyari nag-vacuum ka, alam mo minsan medyo exercise siya eh. Like almost nahihingal ka, medyo moist na yung ano mo, yung mga pores mo, pero hindi ka pa naman super...
Nagwawalis.
Oo, counted na ba yun?
Naglalaba.
Oo.
Yes. Actually, the formal way of doing it, take your heart rate if you know how yung take your pulse, di ba? Dapat makapasok ka dun sa sabihin na nating mga 50 to 60% of your target heart, of your maximum heart rate. Now, what's your maximum heart rate? 220 minus your age, that's your maximum. Take 50 to 60%, that would be moderate activity. Pero para kung complicated yung ganung proseso, yung palatandaan nilang is, medyo pinapawisan ka, medyo may konting hingal, pero nakakapagsalita ka pa rin. Kasi pag vigorous, hindi ka na makakasalita. Yung parang you can't speak in complete sentences. But if you can still speak, lalo na yung walking around, or as you mentioned, nagwawalis-walis or naglilinis sa bahay. Pero wag naman yung light kasi pag light, hindi ka na nga hinihingal, nakakapagkwentuhan ka pa ng sobrang tagal. Light na yon. So aim for the pawis-pawis ng konti pero nakakasalita pa.
Well, Asik Domingo, from the New Year's resolutions, I want to move on to another topic. This came out today. 1.3 billion worth of hospital claims denied have been flagged by COA, and they're urging the DOH to resolve this. I want to get some clarity on that. Ano po, pag sinabi nating dinenay yung mga hospital claims na yon, ibig sabihin ba yung pera ay nasa PhilHealth pa at hindi nila na-disburse dahil hindi kompleto yung mga dokumento? Ganun ba? Tama ba yung pagkakaintindi ko doon sa 1.3 billion na yun?
Tama yung sinabi mo, Gretchen, no, na parang hindi nawala yung pera, na actually nakakalungkot, naiwan siya sa PhilHealth, hindi siya lumabas, hindi siya nabayaran. And ang sinasabi ng COA, sayang kasi imbis na magamit yung pera ng PhilHealth, naiiwan dun sa PhilHealth. So, COA is reminding the DOH and we acknowledge na kailangan talaga yung mga requirements complied with. But take another look at it, no. A lot of the reasons are also denial due to filing past the deadline. Nakalagay kasi sa batas, supposedly, na 60 days lang. Ang nakakalimutan ng PhilHealth at pinapaalala na rin namin sa kanila as its supervising agency, that 60 days is not cast in stone. If you look at Republic Act 10606, which is the law that sets the deadline, it says there 60 days or to a period that the board can extend. So sabi namin sa kanila, mag-aral tayo, meaning sila, ang management, at i-propose nila sa board of directors sa amin, kasama ang DBM, ang DSWD, DOLE, and the other board members, DOF, para ma-extend natin yung deadline. Because as secretary or bosses says, services rendered na yan eh. May mga taong ginamot. Ang nangyayari dyan, kung public hospital, well, wala rin malulugi kasi ang gagawin nila ng public hospital, kukunin dun sa budget ng DOH or dun sa MAIP na sinasabi. Problema pag private, guess where kukuha yung private ng sisingilin niya? Sa pasyente. Kaya bumabalik tayo sa kwento na 2025 is the year para magpakitang gilas ang PhilHealth.
Okay, so the money is going to be returned to Treasury? Or
No.
what do we do with the 1.3 billion?
Naka-escrow muna?
Oo.
Paano po yun?
No, it's not even an escrow. It stays in the bank accounts of PhilHealth.
Pero,
So you see how everything is connected, di ba? When I last guested, sabi namin,
Yes.
the position of the DOH is, yung zero subsidy, which actually happened na nga, it doesn't affect the fact na ang daming pera ng PhilHealth. 280 billion in reserves, plus 150 in surplus. Plus, it has an approved budget of 284. So, financially, it is very sound. The important thing now is to get it to actually bring the money out. And when COA, in the report, the 1.3 billion, sabi ng COA, hoy DOH, sayang yung 1.3 billion na yun kasi naiiwan lang sa PhilHealth. Ibigay nyo kung ano yung mga requirements nila para wala silang excuse na hawakan yung pera. Yun ang sinasabi ng COA.
So,
Pero realistically, Doc, kailan kaya ito magmo-mobilize para mabayaran na yung mga hospitals?
so pag ganun,
I just got an email kanina na nagbo-book ng meeting sa akin na ano ba daw ang pwedeng gawin para i-extend yung deadline. It's that fast kasi
okay.
PhilHealth is feeling the pressure. Thank you to this zero subsidy, no, na parang biglang na pressure lahat ng tao sa loob na ay talagang kailangan talaga nating kilusan to. And sabi nga namin sa DOH, we should look at this as positive pressure. I'm sure ngayon baka may nakikinig or may nanonood sa akin na PhilHealth employees. It's not the time to lower your heads and to say na nakakahiya. No, we should demonstrate to our clientele, our members, our kababayans na kayang gawin ng PhilHealth to at papaanda rin natin ng mas maayos para pagdating ng budget season, yung subsidy babalik na.
It looks like that is the message for 2025, and we look forward to developments on that. And thank you so much for joining us on New Year's Day +1. DOH
Always a
ASEC
pleasure, ladies.
Albert Domingo.
Now, the new year brings new changes. For members of the Social Security System, or SSS, it's an increase in monthly contributions. Effective January 1, 2025, the SSS contribution will hike up to 15% compared to 14% in the previous years. 10% of that will be paid by the employer, while 5% will be deducted from the employee's salary. SSS explained that this increase is mandatory, stemming from the SSS Act signed by former President Rodrigo Duterte.
Sumusunod lang tayo sa batas. Hanggang 2053 na ang fund life ng SSS. Kung hindi natin in-implement ang RA 11199, hanggang 2032 na lang.
According to SSS, the monthly salary credit, or MSC, will increase as well. The MSC is used based on the monthly contributions. SSS is open to members that would want to increase their benefits by adding to their monthly contribution or through the Pension Booster Program.
Halimbawa po, kung sa dati ay 4,000 ang inyong monthly salary credit, ang pinakamababang buwan ng pension for retirement, kung 4,000 ang inyong monthly salary credit ay 2,600 pesos kada buwan. Pero kung 5,000 ang inyong monthly salary credit, ang pinakamababang buwan ng pension ninyo ay 3,000 pesos kada buwan na. So tataas ang benepisyo.
All this news has elicited mixed reactions from the general public. Watch this.
Panibagong kaltas, panibagong siksik na naman po sa budget.
Medyo maliit na lang yung may uwi sa pamilya pagka ganun. Kasi magkano lang naman ng minimum ngayon, 645. Kaya sana dagdagan nila yung sahod.
Depende din naman kung tataasan nila yung contribution, dapat taasan din nila yung benefits.
To be fair, tumaas talaga yung benefits. Yun nga yung ina-explain nila, di ba? 4 years na yan ng increase. 12% noong 2019, medyo na tapos naging 13% noong 2020, and then medyo nag-skip nung pandemic, and then 2024 naging 14%, so next year 15%. Pero mas mataas rin yung contribution. Anyway, break muna tayo right after that. Speaking of prices, housing prices in the Philippines dropped for the first time in 3 years. What properties are affected, and what does this mean for your dream home purchase? Well, we'll be speaking with property consultant David Lee Chu himself about this when we return. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Story here on One News. For the first time in 3 years, prices of housing nationwide have dropped, specifically for condo units and duplexes. Data from the Bangko Sentral shows that the Residential Real Estate Price Index, or RREPI, dropped by 2.3% in the third quarter of 2024 to settle at 163.9. This is a reversal of the sector's 2 quarters of positive growth. The index's last significant contraction was in quarter 2 of 2021 at 9.4%. The Bangko Sentral uses the RREPI as an indicator of price changes across housing types and locations to assess market conditions for credit and real estate. So everyone wants to know where these houses are, but also what do these figures mean for would-be homeowners and the banking sector that heavily deals with residential properties. We have with us tonight someone who knows real estate very, very well. David Lee Chu joins us. He is the CEO and co-founder of Lee Chu Property Consultants. Welcome back to The Big Story, David.
Hello. Thank you for having us in your show. Thank you.
David, so the report that I read, those data reflect the numbers coming from the Bangko Sentral, but I know that Lee Chu Property Consultants also comes out with a yearly property report, even quarterly at that. How do the numbers jive with your own report? And you called it a buyer's market. Tell us more.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, we have to understand that the basis of the central bank is on home loans. So it doesn't capture the entirety of the market. There are many assets in the Philippines that are being purchased without any debt, even in the low end or in the mid end, because of the overseas remittances funding that. So it is not capturing the entire market. Second, they cited and so I think a lot of the lower prices reflected in this benchmark is because banks are becoming more and more conservative. So they're pricing the assets, they're valuing the assets at a much lower base, so that they lend at a much lower they lend at a much lower base. So instead of them lending 60% of the market value, they will lend at 50 or 45% or 40% of land value, and that will also tell you that might show that the prices are coming down. But from what I've seen, from what we see in the business, most prices are holding. Definitely in the high end, and definitely in the low end. The middle end of the market, which is a small piece of the equation by volume, is softening. It's softening because of a number of factors. One being the supply, because we've built a lot, and because of COVID, a lot of projects are delayed, and so most of that volume, most of that supply is being completed now instead of like a year or two before.
So it's very typical because of COVID for projects to be delayed by 1 or 2 years. The second thing is that because of COVID and the high interest rates and high inflation that we've been through in the last 5 years, the middle end market is really getting hurt now. It's like they're getting tired of this marathon of real estate, meaning these factors of COVID and
Inflation.
interest rates and inflation is wearing them out. And so the biggest burden of the middle class is really their home loans. And so many who have speculated or purchased are trying to cut their financial burden by offloading assets. And this wear out is being coupled by the big supply that's entering the market today, especially in the mid-end condo market.
Oh, David, a lot are blaming this on the POGO ban. Does this have anything to do with what's happening now? I mean, is it a major factor as to the real estate decline?
That's a good question. So yes, the POGO ban has introduced a new level of job insecurity, and because of that, a lot of people who speculated or are renting are now trying to vacate places they're renting. For example, the POGO sector employs tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Filipinos. You know the car dealers
Yes.
that you see in the POGO sites. These are maybe 98% women, and these women are paid anywhere from 50 to 80,000 pesos a month, and all they do is stand in front of a camera dealing cards for 7 to 8 hours a day, and that's a very, very healthy, very nice salary for a person, and all that's gone now. So they're struggling. There's a very big chunk of the market employed by the POGO sector that is scrambling to replace that income, and because of that, a lot of condos are being vacated because of this job insecurity that's going on because of this POGO exodus. We have a client that owns 1,000 apartment units, all in the mid segment, and the rents have come down by 60%, and it's struggling therefore for that client to now pay for their amortizations because of the low rents.
Okay. David, one more thing again, no, to compare maybe perhaps some things from that BSP report with the real picture on the ground. It said there was data that in the NCR, residential properties, declined, or the demand and the prices declined by about 14%. But outside the NCR, prices are actually going up a little bit by about 3%. Do you see this to be true on ground as well?
Definitely, because much of the supply, the excess supply, is happening in Manila, in NCR. NCR plus Mega Manila. So if you count Pampanga all the way to Batangas, that geography is about almost 60% of the GDP of the country. Such a small part of the Philippine geography, and yet it comprises 60% of the GDP. And so much of the economic activity, including real estate, most especially real estate, is happening in the NCR. So the supply is really, really kind of crazy in the middle end of the market. So by middle end, we define that as anywhere between 3 million pesos to as high as 20 million pesos. So assets in that category, there's quite a bit of inventory.
Are you talking about condos? To be very particular, is it condos that make up majority of the oversupply?
Yes. Most of the oversupply is in the condo sector, and I think that will be temporary. In our view, there's about 3 years worth of supply in the market, and what that means is that it'll probably take maybe 20 months, 24 months for prices to stop falling and to kind of find a balance, because you don't need all that space to be wiped out. You just need a significant amount of that space to be either leased out or resold.
Around how long before we see that correction? I think I found some data from Colliers as well online, and they kind of see the recovery to at least pre-COVID levels happening by the second quarter of 2028 or somewhere the third quarter of 2029. Is that really going to take that long?
No, I think it's going to be much faster. So we think that rents are falling very quickly since the POGO ban, all across the mid-end segment of the condo sector. Actually, in most parts of the residential market in the mid-end, most of that's already declined by as much as 50-60%.
Wow.
Okay.
Huge.
Prices, so capital values are softening by 20%. We think that it will keep softening to as much as 30-40% in the next 18 months to 24 months. It's going to find a base or a floor in the next 24 months, and then it's going to start appreciating probably in the 30th month. And I say this because, number one, demand will improve. Demand will improve because of the job growth that the Philippines continues to experience from many sectors, primarily in the BPO sector and in the tourism sector. Second is that interest rates are softening all around the world, including the Philippines. Number three, inflation is coming down to more manageable levels. And fourth is that the supply of condos are coming down very, very quickly. So these four factors are going to contribute to stability in the property market sooner than what most people think.
Well, actually, David, even with prices going down, a lot still find properties unaffordable and quite expensive. How do you think the market can address the affordability issue in terms of primary houses or even in the mid-end or middle-end market?
So I say this I'll answer that by saying that many developers have already stretched their terms to very fantastic levels. Like you can pick up condos now, rent to own, meaning they will allow you to move in and rent the apartment for 3 years, and then apply some of your rent into payments of purchase for the unit, and then they hope that in 3 years' time you would be in a financial state where you can borrow money at a reasonable level and pay for the unit.
David,
and if you're not able to do that, they will still allow you to rent for another 3, 4, 5 years, and then some part of that will be partial payment for the purchase. We've never seen terms this generous by developers. And so we're saying to the market, to the public, you should take advantage of this phenomenon. The problem is people like FOMO, and if you don't feel like you're experiencing FOMO, they don't move. For example, when prices are going up and supply is so scarce and everyone is buying, people want to buy, and that contributes to the rapid appreciation of prices. And when then on the flip side of that is you've got terms this good, and still nobody wants to pick up assets, because nobody's buying. It kind of propagates this notion that maybe they should hold off buying, when in fact we should all be contrarians about the market. So, to quote Warren Buffett, you should be quite bold when people are fearful.
And speaking of that, what are the opportunities to take advantage of? I guess your advice for those who are looking for homes, that's number one. And the second one is for those who own properties in the mid-end market.
Yeah. People have to remember that on both sides of the fence, from tenants and buyers and developers and investors, that property is a long game. It's a long game. It's not a quick fix. And so, yes, we're saying to people, buy assets now, right? But they don't want to buy assets now. We're also saying, when you buy assets now, do not expect like tomorrow, next week, next month, next quarter, you're going to make a 20% gain. It's not like that. It will take time. But as I've seen in the last 60 years, real estate has been the best peso asset class. And it's very tough to beat that. Very, very tough to beat that. And so very few stocks can give you the returns in the last 60 years the way real estate has for most investors. And earlier somebody asked how people will have to afford it. Well, we just all have to, number one, work harder. Number two, be financially astute so that we don't throw money at stupid things, and we save and deploy and invest that money so that it turns faster. And then we go into real estate. Next is that we have to appreciate that today has been some of the best times to borrow money in the last, compared to the last 60 years. This last 4 or 5 years, 6 years have been the best because we've had record low interest rates up until maybe the last 24 months. We had the spike of interest rates everywhere, and that's a phenomenon everywhere. But we think it's going to come down, and so this period is some of the best times to borrow money. They have single-digit interest rates, like as low as 6-7% today, and they're the longest you can fix them for. Unlike in the 80s or 90s or even in the early 2000s, where interest rates were prohibitive, and you couldn't borrow sensibly over a midterm, like 5 to 8, 10-year period. Now, interest rates have been very, very manageable.
All right,
and
David.
we have to remember that and take advantage of that.
Yes, definitely good advice. And as they always say in markets, buy on the dip. I guess the same goes or holds true for real estate, for future homes. But thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and your time with us tonight. Happy New Year. Real estate expert David Lee Chu over Zoom. Thank you so much.
Good advice facing the coming year, no?
It might be scary, but it's cheap now and there's a lot of demand, a lot of supply. So you got to take advantage.
You just have to be, I guess, to take note of which properties
Did
will
Coach Johnson say
appreciate.
yesterday, is it a good year to buy properties?
Pag maganda yung taon mo.
Depends on your side. All right.
Depends on your side.
We have run out of time, so that's it for the big story tonight.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Thanks for tuning in and have a good night.